YouTube, what's up? A couple of weeks ago I discovered this cute new game. It's kind of a strategy game. It feels a little bit like an RTS, but it isn't quite. It's more of an auto battler. I'm talking about Mechabellum. Mechabellum is a game that was in early access for a year or two and had been recommended to me a couple of times. And I thought that could be quite fun. It's where you play with bots against other bots. It's mostly multiplayer, but there's some single player as well. I really like the game, and I have been playing this for quite a bit, for 64 hours now. Now, I wanted to go ahead and do a tier list of this game because I have a few hours now in it, and there's a couple of different starting commanders that you can begin with. And I think it'd be nice to try and see which ones are my favorite, which ones I think are the strongest, and which ones I think are the weakest. When you start a game of Mechabellum, you are given the choice of two opening units. A cheap unit, I call them tier 1, and a more expensive unit, kind of mid-tier. I call them tier 2. So you get shown a random tier 1 and a random tier 2 unit, and that's your starting regiments. And then you can start ordering extra units and placing them on the battlefield and watching them fight an opponent. And then, you know, either your army wins or their army wins, and if your army wins, then you'll do some damage to their health, and then it goes to the next round and so on, until someone's health drops to 0. But it's more than just the units that you are picking and starting with. You're starting with something like a starting commander, someone that gives a global bonus to everything you do. For instance, 50 extra credits per round, or all your units have more health, or you have an easier access to air units, and those are also better when you have them, and so on and so forth. So here is my Mechabellum tier list. Let's get into it. So these are the starting commanders that you can begin with. You've got the Quick Supply Specialist, where you start with 200 extra credits in the first round. You start with 400 instead of 200, and that's it. So it's a single time advantage that you'll either use typically in the first or second round, and then that's it, right? The rest of the game, if anyone else has like a permanent advantage, you don't have that. You just get a good start. And maybe that gets you a couple of round wins because you have more units than the opponent. Maybe, right? So it's pretty interesting to see how you can use that. Initially, I found this Quick Supply Specialist very lackluster because, well, I'd rather have 50 supplies every single round than 200 in the first round. But then you realize the earliest the game can end is usually around round 4 or 5, and a really long game would maybe end by round 10. And more commonly I see games ending about round 6 or 7 or 8. So if the game ends by round 5 or so, this one is only worth 250 resources. 50 supply per round. After 4 rounds, he matches her. So if it ends by round 5, you'll eventually have 50 supplies more, but you had most of your supplies later. So then I thought, okay, I guess this isn't that bad. You can start with a unique unit that can start gathering experience, and you can maybe have some momentum, score some extra points. It's not that many yet because you don't have many units, so you're not scoring a lot of extra damage on their health. But you can still start to kind of swing the match with momentum. So I think it's not bad. I like to experiment with her to, you know, pick her up early, but I can't imagine. And, you know, at the moment, my MMR is 1400 and the top players are 2000. So I am above average now, but I'm not like very good yet. Still, I can't imagine that I am going to think that this is the best one, the bee's knees. I probably used to think of her as tier C or D. I've come to appreciate this starting bonus, but I think it's a tier B. Then Cast Control Specialist. This one gets 100 supplies per round, meaning that it matches the Quick Supply Specialist after just 2 rounds. However, all units have less health and damage, 13%, and their baseline health and damage is lower, which means that when you upgrade a unit, when they get double their health and double their damage, that has also been diminished. So it's not like by the time that the unit has been leveled up 6 times, you've mostly swallowed away that little deficit that they have at level 1 unit of veterancy. No, all of that, every time that 13% missing damage and health is diminished from the upgrade value. So it actually makes her worse at unit upgrades. Whereas with some specialists, maybe you'd be happy to get some units all the way to level 5 or 6. It really feels like with cost control specialists, that's not as valuable by comparison. On the other hand, you've got a lot of extra supplies. So what could you use those supplies for if not by investing into upgrades? Well, you could more liberally purchase missiles in order to take out certain regiments of the opponent that are easily snipeable. In theory, you could use 2 missiles every round, and that's where your money goes towards, right? And then that could be like a free advantage into all of the battles that could be quite impactful. But opponents can wise into your missile usage as well and start positioning differently, or start using shields and barriers where those missiles aren't going to be doing as well as you would like. Plus, your units are still more vulnerable in general and deal less damage. Then another way to play her is to just position really wide, right? Instead of building tall, build very wide. Very often deploy more than the 2 units max per round that is permissible. You could deploy 3 units per round by purchasing the extra, unit purchase from the left side tower every time. You could do more flanking. You could swing which of the side of the battlefield you dedicate a lot of resources to more often. So I feel like you should play with mobility. But then as rounds go on, Mechabellum doesn't really allow you to reposition most of your units all that much. So even the idea of playing like a high maneuverable game doesn't fully come into flesh as much as perhaps I would like. Like I've tried to adopt that mindset that I'm going to play all over the map, but against certain formations it doesn't feel as useful. So whereas a week ago I thought she's definitely tier S, I feel like the unit vulnerability is something that I tended to feel, and I'm gonna just put her in A, but I think it's a high tier A. Alright, move on to the next. Aerial Specialist. Aerial units no longer consume supplies when being unlocked. Increases air units attack and HP by 10% as well. I think this is pretty cool in general. This could save you quite a few credits. Wasps cost 50, Phoenix cost 50 to unlock, so that's theoretically, if you go both, you're saving 100 in total. Then you're saving 200 on Overlord and 100 on Wraith. And I think that's it. So that's a total of 400 credits saved. Unless I'm forgetting another air unit right now. But that's 400 credits saved in total. If you end up getting them, and only as you unlock them. So that's a pretty late usage of bonus credits compared to some of these others. You may not need or want those air units right away, and therefore this whole bonus may not do anything for a while. And the entire health and attack bonus that you get only ends up becoming relevant once you have any air units at all. Opponents are also forewarned which commander you have, and they will therefore, with every decision they make, keep into mind that you might be going for air units. Now, if there were air units that don't have an easy counter, then I would say that this is pretty darn good. But I do feel like many of the air units have an easy counter. There are technologies that allow units like Marksman, Mustangs, to Typhoons to specifically counter air with great efficacy. And therefore I feel like this often takes me in a route that I may not necessarily want to go. I lose the possibility to choose which direction I want to go and whether I want air at all. Do I really want to go Phoenixes when Marksmen feel a little bit similar to Phoenixes and might fit into my composition better? Wraiths are cool for a while, but tend to specifically work against chaff, but they end up being really weak against melting points and Marksmen. So am I really doubling down with Wraiths? If there was a unit like the Carrier, like in StarCraft, then I think this would be awesome, because those seem to be good in many different situations. They're very versatile, but I don't think there's a versatile unit that can kill everything, and therefore I don't feel like this one is that valuable. It can be nice, but I think she's tier C at best. Going on to the next, you've got the Supply Specialist. This was also one of my favorites for a while. 50 supply every single round. That seems pretty darn good. And it probably is quite good actually. You can go in any direction you want. You're not forced to play air. You gradually get credits every single round, which you can save up until the next round to spend it together. I think it's really solid. Credit is the lifeblood of what you can put onto the field, and it directly adds into strength that you have. What do you not get with this? You don't get a strong starting bonus like with the quick supply specialist. You don't get a strong starting bonus like the Marksman at the beginning of the battle. Your units don't have more health. You don't have an easy access to air or giant units. You'll have to pay full dollar for that. But overall, I feel like this is really solid. I like this quite a bit actually. And I like it more than most. So I think this is a tier A for me as well. Next up, we've got the giant units no longer consume supplies when being unlocked. So this is pretty cool. There's a lot of giant units in the game. There is the War Factory, the Overlord. You've got Vulcan and Fortress and then Melting Point. And then the Sandworm since recently. So that's 6 giant units. That is up to 200 supplies per unit. So technically this one might save you 1200 credits, which even Cast Control Specialist won't do you over the course of an entire game. But that is if you unlock every single giant unit. And even unlocking them, War Factory is not a Titan. Is a Titan, not a Giant? Oh, cool. Okay, so you only get 1000 then, okay. Still, 10 rounds, unlikely. But the only way that this would actually have real value, besides just getting the unlocks, is if you also used all 5. And that's pretty rare. Spreading yourself thin across many different units means that you cannot research technology that applies to all of that same unit. Additionally, you can also get bonus units. Every 4 rounds you get a stack of bonus units, and some of them may actually be a Fortress or a Vulcan or an Overlord or a Melting Point, and then that creates a free unlock for anyone that gets it regardless. So I think realistically, Giant Specialist unlocks maybe 600 worth of supplies, the most for you. I think credit-wise, it's not super worth it because you may not even use those 3 different units. But I think the cool thing mainly is that it lowers the floor for starting on a giant unit. I think that's where the real power for Giant Specialist lies. Not having to pay 200 on the first time you do a giant unlock, which could be early on in a round when money is still very scarce. You can start to leverage a giant unit if you have a well-crafted composition around it and if you use it in the right situation, and then you try to build around that giant unit and keep leveraging it. What could that be? It could be a Vulcan, right? Get a couple of Vulcans out relatively early, give them range. Okay, they are now dealing with all the chaff, all the little units. Now what are you vulnerable to? Air units and Melting Point. So how do you deal with Melting Point? Having more of your own chaff. Could be sledgehammers. It could be little things, right? Like crawlers and fangs, but those could die to the opponent's Vulcan. So instead, maybe you want to have like semi-strong chaff, such as it could be sledgehammers. So Vulcans, sledgehammers, you need some anti-air. Maybe you've got some Marksman or Mustangs behind you. And then you kind of have this composition that can deal with many different things. Giant Specialists could help lead you to that relatively early. And nonetheless, I feel credit-wise and in terms of being forced to use giants and your opponent knowing that, it allows an opponent to craft compositions that are ready for giants where that's not going to come as a surprise. And because of that, I don't think this is that strong either. However, I think Giants Specialist can't be a lot worse than obtain 200 supplies in the first round, because you could save these 200 to unlock a giant, and this one gets it for free. And I thought this is tier B, then this is tier B at least as well, right? These can be used for a non-giant unit, but you could save them to unlock a giant. If you do that though, then you're just a Giant Specialist times 1 instead of times 5. And that sucks for Quick Supply Specialist. So the only way Quick Supply Specialist can be better is if you don't spend it on Giants. So I think Giant Specialist is going to be tier B, unless Quick Supply is lower. But I think Quick Supply is at least tier B as well. Then you've got the Marksman Specialist. Start with a free rank 3 Marksman. Doesn't say anything about the rest of your composition, that Marksman. Right? The 2 starting units are... They could be anything. They could be Marksman as well, but it could be other things like Fangs, Crawlers, etc. Overall, I think this is a very strong starting bonus. This makes you almost always win your first round. It gets you started with a strong scaling single target damage hitter. I feel like this all but guarantees you the victory, but not per se. It depends who you're up against as well. And it depends on the matchup of your starting units and theirs, but it almost always wins you 1 or 2 rounds. I think that's pretty strong. I'm going to put this in tier A. I feel like it gives you a strong start that can snowball. I might look back at this in a month and be like, man, I was wrong about this or that. But, you know, this is where my opinion is at right now. I also haven't watched pretty much almost any pro games or high-level games. So I wanted to get my thoughts out there based on what I've learned myself in 60 hours. Right? So then there's the Fortified Specialist. Just straight up, all your units have 17% more HP. I tend to pick this one if I like their starting unit. If the starting unit is like Phoenix and Crawler for the Fortified Specialist, I'm probably not picking him because I don't value health on Phoenix and Crawlers pretty much at all. They pretty much die in one shot to most things that matter, and so I don't think this is that good. I might keep this if I'm against Mustangs and I have Crawlers. Then their health does matter. But against something like Arclight, unless you're over leveled compared to Arclights, like you have level 2 Crawlers against level 1 Arclights, then suddenly it matters again, because the tipping point of 1 shot, 2 shot, 1 shot becomes 2 shot. But if I have Sledgehammers and Arclight start, I love this. I love this. All of my units will have more health the rest of the game. I think that's very strong. Helps you win a little bit. So, I think this is quite strong. Is it up there on tier A? I think so. I would put it right here. Next, Elite Specialist. Obtain extra 100 supplies in the first round. And you can... And it says, able to quickly recruit rank 2 units. But it's not entirely true, is it? It should read, only able ever to only recruit rank 2 units. All of your units, at minimum, must be recruited at tier 2. Which means you are paying an extra price as well. If a unit is normally 100 credits, hiring it at rank 2 will cost 150. So if you want to get 2 units for 100, they'll be 150, 150. Which is why she starts with 300 credits instead of 200 credits. So that she can actually hire 2 units. That's pretty cool. You can hire 2 sets of level 2 Crawlers, which now don't die in a single shot against enemy Arclights. You can hire 2 sets of level 2 Fangs, which is probably not that good of an idea. 2 sets of level 2 Arclights, which will actually destroy Sledgehammers, can really help you win a Sledgehammer matchup. So this is all pretty cool, but here's the problem. If an opponent flanks against Elite Specialist with a 100 supply Crawler, a 100 credits Crawler from the back flank, and you don't have a flank defense yet, how do you stop it? You have to put a 150 credit Crawler to stop it, or 150 Arclight Crawler to stop it. Anytime you're reacting to a 100 credit attack, you're defending with a 150 credit attack. So you're inflexible with locations. Not only that, but you're also inflexible with counters. Anytime your opponent goes air for the first time and you don't have anti-air yet, they do something that is level 1, rank 1 air, you need to respond with a rank 2 counter. Even if rank 1 would also one-shot the thing. So you're always potentially overpaying for your responses to new developments. It is difficult for Elite Specialist to do a tech switch. While your units are strong, and this can really work out if the opponent isn't punishing it, I suspect Elite Specialist is going to get worse and worse as your level goes up, as opponents get better at making you respond to different threat levels. And because of that, I think Elite Specialist is tier C. And I tend not to take it that much anymore. But I really liked it at the beginning when I started, though I am taking a mental note to try it again, right? I think it's nice to keep experimenting and trying the stronger and the weaker commanders as well. But if I'm playing purely to win and not to experiment and practice, I don't think I'm taking Elite Specialist all that often. Next up, Rhino Specialist. Rhino Specialist has no benefit at all for 3 rounds. You don't have everyone else's bonus credits, you don't got their Marksman, you don't got their health, you don't get easy access to Giants or Air, right? You don't have rank 2 units or extra supplies, none of it. But then suddenly at round 4, after 3 rounds of nothing and screaming for help, you get a Rhino. You get a free unlock on Rhino, which costs 50, and you get a Rhino level 2. Normally a Rhino costs 200 to purchase, and it costs... how much does it cost to level up? I think 100. So that is going to be a 300 supply gift with a 50 supply unlock. So you suddenly get 350 supply. That's more than the quick supply specialist, but it's later. Early money is always better in games than late money. So 200 now or 350 in round 4. And you do get you don't get a receipt for it, right? It's not just resources, it's specifically this thing, a birthday gift without a receipt. Now, luckily, Mechabellum does allow you to purchase the ability to receipt things. So if you get the 100 credit, the 100 supply purchase on the right side tower once per round in the planning phase, you can sell a unit for its cost. So you can recoup 300 supplies here after you spend 100 to have the thing. And then you can keep using the thing ever after. And it's pretty useful to use the recovery asset ability. So let's say that in an unideal circumstance where you're not looking to sell any units after that, and you're not valuing the 50 supply that you get for the unlock on Rhinos because you're not looking to make any Rhinos, you at least still get 300 minus 100, 200 supply. At the very least you get 200 supply, which equals the quick supply specialist, but it comes later. You could also choose not to sell the Rhino right away and fight for 1, 2 or 3 rounds with it. It will most likely win you the round in round 4 when it finally shows up. Even though opponent know they are coming, they can see which commander you are, just the extra firepower you get from it, them needing to deal with it, you still being able to create other units and spend your money on other things, you're probably winning round 4. Then maybe you can see how it goes, whether you want to keep it or you want to sell it. So there is still power in that, but I don't love it. I don't love it. I think this one gets its advantage pretty late, and I think Rhinos in general are not that good. They used to be my favorite unit, not so much anymore. But I will also admit that maybe I am not that good at using them. I think the fast, easy to focus fire down units like Worm and Rhino are some of my weaker used units. I prefer to sit back and shoot from afar. But I think maybe because you can sell it and you can use the Rhino for a round or 2, maybe this is tier B. I think I rated about tier B. I don't think it's tier A. So that's my thoughts on that right now. And then you've got the Speed Specialist, the final one. Increases the movement speed of all units by 3. Well, I used to think this is garbage. Because why would you need to move towards an opponent when they could just come to you? I've got my Stormcallers, you've got your Stormcallers, I've got my Marks, you've got your Marks, I've got a Fortress, you've got your Vulcan. We're all shooting at each other from afar. Now, I thought, oh, maybe this is only good for melee units. It could even be bad. Because if I place a unit all the way to the back of my base, what if I don't want it to attack too fast? I can't stop it from having movement speed, so I feel like it kind of sucks. Then I thought, hey, by the way, this is 50 supplies every round. This is also 50, because you can spend 50 money to have bonus movement speed in your left side tower per round, one-time round advantage. So then Supply Specialist is just a million times better, because he could choose not to do it. Or he could use that money to do it every round, and then he is a speed specialist. I thought that's not entirely a fair comparison, is it? Because speed specialist can keep her speed and buy the left side tower advantage. So now she has 6 bonus movement speed. So what's the point of all this? Okay, melee units gap close faster on ranged units. That's pretty awesome. You can dodge stormcallers better when you have very high movement speed. If my units kill your tower and your units kill my tower, my units will move across the battlefield much faster to get to your second tower and then to get to those units and then to win that battle. Anytime that I have forces on different sides of the map and one of those win, they rejoin the other side much faster. Movement speed also allows criminally slow units to become faster. Units that otherwise don't even have movement speed options, like stormcallers. Sometimes stormcallers initially get some great shots off, but then they can't keep up with the rest of the army because they're so slow. I started to appreciate speed specialist in the last week or so as being better than what I thought. I used to put this in tier D. Right? I don't want to be faster. I just want to sit at my towers and shoot. I just want to stay right here and you stay off my lawn. But now I think, okay, I think it's better than before. Wait, oh yeah, that's true. Launcher overload on stormcallers as a movement speed option. That's right. So I have started to appreciate speed specialist more and more, though I do think it's harder to play. I suspect actually that this may actually be the best commander, the only tier S commander that I would choose. Movement speed. When I think of the value of movement speed in Warcraft 3, Unholy Aura, Endurance Aura, how much human players would love to have their movement speed, or Night Elf, right? It is so good. How much is movement speed worth in Dota 2? So good, right? But in Dota 2 or Warcraft 3, you can stand still. You can choose not to go, and this is an auto battler. So speed affects everything, sometimes for the right, sometimes for the better. So even though I think this might be true later, I personally cannot mirror that to my experiences, and this tier list is of my experiences right now. So I think the movement speed is maybe for me also tier B. So this is my list. It's pretty in the middle. I don't have one where I think that one is just completely broken. Sometimes I thought it's the Marksman, maybe that is tier S. I've at times thought it's the 50 supply guy that's tier S, but I can't say for sure that there's one to me that stands out head and shoulders above the rest. I thought this one was tier S for a while. If I have to just say my favorite to get, I'm gonna say it's probably the Marksman one, and it's not because of the haircut. That was my Mechabellum tier list. Where do you think I'm wrong? What is your favorite? What do you think is the best? What do you think I will learn as I get to higher MMR? Let me know in the comments. Give this video a like, of course, helps a lot for the algorithm. And if you want to see my Mechabellum gameplay videos, it's on my other YouTube channel at Grubby Plays. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching. See you guys next video. I'm gonna play some Mechabellum.